Gable was going to go out there. He was going to beat his opponent. He was going to shake hands. He was going to walk off the mat. The time for celebrating came from the time he walked from the center of the mat to the edge. Then it was on to the next one.
Humble off the mat as he was combative on it, Dan Gable extended his perfect streak, winning NCAA championships in 1968 and 69. Continuing his march through his senior year, Gable took a 181-0 record into his match with Washington sophomore Larry Owings in the NCAA Finals.
Iowa State had just honored him 2 weeks earlier with this big awards ceremony and blanket.
There's a place underneath the eye where we'd like to place the undefeated national champion at the end of the year. We have made room to add outstanding wrestler at the NCAA tournament.
None of those opponents had a chance against Gable. Larry Owings didn't belong on a mat with Dan Gable. Everybody knew that.
Well, Ken Kraft, the big one coming up here, Dan Gable, Larry Owings. What do you think?
Well, what else can we say about Gable? He's just amazing.
We had not sold out NCAA wrestling finals in those years, but this was a hot ticket in town.
Dan, I guess you got a pretty big match here tonight against this Owings boy from Washington. Do you have any predictions?
I did have some interviews also. Wild World Sports was interviewing me and asking me why I wanted to wrestle Dan Gable, and of course I looked him right straight in the eye and said, I'm going to beat him.
He's been saying a lot of things about me, so I really got to go.
I hear he's been predicting that he thinks he can beat you.
I walk into the tournament, and there's a big newspaper. All of a sudden, out of the blue, one of the guys goes, "Hey, look at this, Gable." I go, "What?" "Headlines here that this guy's going to beat you here." I go, "Who?" Larry Owings used a fabulous psychological technique that Muhammad Ali used on Sonny Liston, and that is to be so overbearing in what you say that pretty soon your competitor can't take you seriously, and then he doesn't know what kind of a person you are.
Hey, Martin, a teammate comes to me, he says, "Coach," he said, you got to come and talk to Dan. He said, he's completely slacked out.
My oldest brother, Phil, who had never seen Gable before, he made comment, well, is this guy really that good? And I said, well, you'll get to see tonight.
Well, here we go. There's the champion, Dan Gable, hasn't lost in high school or college.
The bouts before, which were very good bouts and great wrestlers, it was sort of like a prelim. They came to see Dan Gable win again.
There Owings goes again on an underarm spin and a roll through. Beautiful move.
Owings, from the get-go, went after Gable. Usually, most of the athletes that got on the mat with Gable were very cautious.
He's right back in, Bud, on a takedown. He hasn't got it yet. Where he does. And now Owings goes out ahead by a score of 6-2. And Dan Gable's in serious trouble here in the second period.
I mean, there were teammates in the stands who were watching the match who weren't even paying attention to it. We're laughing with each other. A couple of them didn't start paying attention until the third period, and they said, looked at the scoreboard and said, this is close.
Gable looks a bit tired. Yes, he does. Oh, he got it on the way. He's got him down. The 2-point takedown. And on his back also.
As I saw the action, I thought, hey, he got the takedown, but it's 11-11. We're going to see an overtime, which I loved. But there was the 2-point near-fall predicament, I believe we called it at that time.
And Dan Gable is bewildered by the score. He thought that the score would be 11-9 on the board, but a 11-11 tie with his writing time.
There was confusion that in Dan's face, questioning that the near fall was called awful quick. But then I think it was almost like, I can't believe I'm in this position. I've not been here before.
Now there's only 3 seconds remaining. Owings is leading. 13-9 with the riding time. The final score, there it is. 13-11. First time in high school or his second collegiate career. Dan Gable, after 181 in a row, has lost.
You could see the look of almost disbelief or amazement on Dan Gable's face, that the reality of it all came to him at that moment.
When we got up on the announcer's stand, they got to Dan Gable.
second place, something that he had never received before. He received his award and he kind of hung his head, and of course everybody got on their feet and started cheering and everything and wouldn't stop.
When he took his place on the stand, his head was down. This is what happened with him. Just gradually, the head went up and with cheers. I just almost cheers to tell about it.
Coaches cried. Some of his teammates cried. There was a lump as big as a baseball in my throat because it was one of the most emotional things that I've ever seen.
We had won a team national championship that night. We didn't go out and eat together. There wasn't any celebration because we'd never seen him lose. We were living together off campus. First thing he did was pick up the newspaper. And the headlines of the newspaper, it said, "Cyclones win, Gable fails." And he just burst out crying.
His loss showed me he was human. I remember that morning of him drinking beer with a couple of guys. I never saw him do it before, but that day he made the statement, "I can't win when I don't drink. What difference does it make?"
His mother got the message that he was acting that way, and she says, "You just wait a minute, I'll be right down." And she jumped in her car and drove 100 miles, walked in the door, and walked up and slapped him right in the face and said, "Grow up."
He was supposed to do a banquet maybe a week after that. And at first he goes, "I can't do that banquet. No, I can't do it." I said, "You got to put it behind you and move on down the road."
It wasn't easy to take this defeat, but I got to learn. I got to live with it. It's life.
I did feel sorry for Dan Gable. Why couldn't it have happened, someplace that wasn't so important? But to lose, the last match of your career, the capping of a perfect career, that is something that's got to be a crushing blow to anyone.